is P7. Todd is second. Johnny Prince is P3. Jason Short is P4. YH8 Racing is 6th. Chris Budd is P5. YH8 Racing in Virage de la Sainte-Bonne is 6th. Johnny Prince from New Zealand in Virage de la Sainte-Bonne is 3rd. Todd is P2. Jason Short in Virage DuPont is P4. Chris Budd is 5th. Todd is P2. Best lap is a 2:02.640. The race dictator in Corby de Signes is P1. That Canadian guy in Virage de la Sainte-Bonne is 6th. Best lap is a 2:06.705. Jason Short in Double Droit de Beausset is P4. YH8 Racing is P7. Best lap is a 2:08.644. That Canadian guy in Virage de Bender is P6. Chris Butt in Virage du Lac is P5. YH8 Racing is P6. Best lap is a 2:06.266. That Canadian guy is P7. YH8 Racing is P6. That Canadian guy in Virage de la Sainte-Bonne is 7th. YH8 Racing in Virage de Bender is 6th. That Canadian guy from Canada in Corby de Signes is 7th. Chris Butt is P5. Jason Short is 4th. The qualification session is at Circuit du Castellet in Le Castellet, France. Jason Short from New Zealand is 19th. That Canadian guy from Canada is 2nd. YH8 Racing from New Zealand is 4th. Jason Short in Virage de la Sainte-Bonne is 1st. That Canadian guy is 2nd. YH8 Racing in Corby de Signes is 4th. Minutes remaining in the session. Todd from New Zealand in Double Droite de Bosset is P5. That Canadian guy is P2. Jason Short is P1. Jason Short is up 23.60 in Virage du Cam. Jason Short is up 23.34 in Corby de Signes. Jason Short is up 23.53 in Virage de Bender. Jason Short improved his P1 with a 2:03.927. Jason Short is up 0.05 in S de la Verrerie. That Canadian guy is 3rd. Todd is provisional pole with a 2:03.915. Jason Short in Virage de El Hotel is 3rd up 0.32. Jason Short is up 0.83 in Ligny Droit du Mistral. Jason Short is up 1.46 in Corby de Signes. Jason Short is up 1.31 in Virage de Bender. Jason Short is provisional pole with a 2:02.724. Todd is P3. Todd improved his third with a 2:03.182. 0.458 off pole. YH8 Racing in Virage du Camp is 7th up 25.70. 5 minutes remaining in the session. YH8 Racing is up 25.87 in Corby de Signes. YH8 Racing is up 26.25 in Virage de Bender. The race dictator from New Zealand is P2. The race dictator is provisional pole with a 2:02.228. Todd is provisional pole with a 2:01.835. Chris Butt is 4th. Chris Butt is up 1.22 in Virage du Lac. YH8 Racing is P7 up 0.58. YH8 Racing is up 0.80 in Corby de Signes. YH8 Racing is up 0.47 in Virage de Bender. Chris Butt from New Zealand is fourth up 0.55. Todd is provisional pole with the 201.813. That Canadian guy in Vireage to Bender is P7 up 1.12. That Canadian guy improved his P6 with a 205.830. 4.017 off pole. That Canadian guy is up 0.02 in S de la Verrerie. Johnny Prince is P5. Johnny Prince improved his fourth with a 204.429. 2.616 off pole. YH8 Racing is P7 up 1.14. The qualifying session is now in overtime. YH8 Racing is up 2.33 in Vireage to Bender. YH8 Racing improved his fourth with a 204.108. 2.295 off pole. YH8 Racing is up 0.01 in S de la Verrerie. Todd is provisional pole with a 201.560. That Canadian guy is P7, that Canadian guy is up 0.77 in Vireage to Bender. Chris Butt is 6th. That Canadian guy in Vireage du Lac is 7th up 0.17. That Canadian guy improved his P7 with a 205.047. 3.487 off pole. Broadcast bot is 20th. The race session is at Circuit du Castellet in Le Castellet, France. Todd from New Zealand is first. Jason Short from New Zealand is second. The race dictator from New Zealand is third. YH8 Racing from New Zealand is P4. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is P5. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. Todd in S de la Verrerie is second. The race dictator in Vireage de El Hotel is P3. Todd in Viarage de la Sainte-Bonne is P2. YH8 Racing in Ligny Droit du Mistral is P4. Todd is P2. The race dictator is 7. The race dictator passed YH8 Racing for P6. Todd in Viarage de Bender is P2. That Canadian guy from Canada in Viarage du Lac is 4th, 2.1 behind Chris Budd. Chris Budd from New Zealand in S de la Verrerie is 3rd, 1.5 ahead of that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy in Viarage de El Hotel is 4th, 3.0 behind Chris Budd. Chris Budd in Ligny Droit du Mistral is 3rd, 2.0 ahead of that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy on lap 2 is 4th, 2.2 behind Chris Budd. Chris Budd in Double Droit de Bosset is P3, 2.4 ahead of that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy in Corby de Garlabau is P4, 2.8 behind Chris Budd. The race dictator is 5th, 1.0 behind Chris Budd. The race dictator passed Chris Budd for 4th. Chris Budd in S de la Verrerie is P5, 0.7 behind the race dictator. The race dictator in Viarage du Camp is P4, 1.4 ahead of Chris Budd. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Chris Budd from New Zealand in Ligny Droit du Mistral is 5th, 1.6 behind the race dictator. The race dictator from New Zealand is P4, 1.5 ahead of Chris Budd. The race dictator was 8.2 faster last lap. Chris Butt in double draw I Deboset is P5, 2.5 behind the race dictator. The race dictator is 4th. Best lap is a 2:03.951. 1.758 off the fastest lap. Todd is 2nd. The race dictator in Virage de El Hotel is P4, 0.7 behind, that Canadian guy. The race dictator passed, that Canadian guy for P3. That Canadian guy in Virage de la Sainte-Bonne is P4, 3.6 behind the race dictator. Todd in Corby de Signes is P2, 3.7 behind Jason Short. That Canadian guy is P4, 4.2 behind the race dictator. Todd in Virage DuPont on lap 4 is P2, 3.8 behind Jason Short. That Canadian guy on lap 4 is P4, 4.5 behind the race dictator. The race dictator was 3.4 faster last lap. Todd in Virage du Camp is 2nd, 0.4 behind Jason Short. Todd passed Jason Short for P1. Jason Short in Lignidroit du Mistral is P2, 4.5 behind Todd. Todd was 0.9 faster last lap. That Canadian guy is 4th. Jason Short in double draw I Deboset is P2, 3.4 behind Todd. 10 minutes remaining in the session. That Canadian guy from Canada is 4th. Jason Short is P2, 3.2 behind Todd. The race dictator is third. Jason Short in Lignidroid du Mistral is P2, 3.0 behind Todd. The race dictator on lap 6 is P3. Jason Short in Double Droit de Bosset is second, 2.7 behind Todd. The race dictator is P3. Jason Short is second, 3.5 behind Todd. The race dictator is P3. Jason Short is second, 3.1 behind Todd. The race dictator is P3. Jason Short from New Zealand in Double Droit de Bosset is P2, 2.5 behind Todd. The race dictator in Virage de Bender is P3. Jason Short is second, 2.0 behind Todd. Chris Butt in Virage du Lac is P5. 5 minutes remaining in the session. The race dictator in Virage de El Hotel is P3, 0.2 behind Jason Short. That Canadian guy from Canada is fourth. The race dictator is P3. That Canadian guy is fourth. The race dictator in Corby de Garlabau is third. That Canadian guy in Virage DuPont is P4. The race dictator is P3. Best lap is a 2:02.044. 0.428 off the fastest lap. That Canadian guy in Virage DuCamp is P4. The race dictator is P3, 1.0 behind Jason Short. Chris Butt is P5. The race dictator is third, 1.0 behind Jason Short. That Canadian guy is P4. The race dictator is third, 0.9 behind Jason Short. The race dictator was 4.6 faster last lap. That Canadian guy is fourth. The race dictator from New Zealand in Virage de la Saint Bonne is third, 0.6 behind Jason Short. That Canadian guy is fourth. The race dictator in Corby de Signes is P3, 1.0 behind Jason Short. Todd in Corby de Garlabau is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Todd finished P1. Jason Short finished P2. The race dictator finished P3. That Canadian guy finished P4. Chris Butt is 5th. Chris Butt finished 5th. YH8 Racing is P6. YH8 Racing finished P6. Broadcast Bot is P8. The race session is at Circuit du Castellet in Le Castellet, France. YH8 Racing from New Zealand is first. Chris Butt from New Zealand is P2. That Canadian guy from Canada is third. The race dictator from New Zealand is P4. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. The race dictator is now P3. Chris Butt in S de la Verrerie is P2. The race dictator in Virage de El Hotel is P3. Chris Butt in Virage de la Sainte-Bonne is second. The race dictator is P3. Chris Butt is P2. The race dictator in Double Droit de Bosset is third. Chris Butt in Virage de Bender is second. The Race Dictator is third, 0.1 ahead of Todd. The Race Dictator is now P1. Chris Butt is third, 0.1 behind Jason Short. That Canadian guy on lap 2 is P3, 0.1 ahead of Chris Butt. Todd from New Zealand is P4. Best lap is a 2:16.109. 3.572 off the fastest lap. That Canadian guy in Lignidroit du Mistral is third, 0.7 behind Jason Short. Todd is fourth, 0.9 behind, that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy is third, 0.7 ahead of Todd. Todd in Virage de Bender is P4, 1.0 behind, that Canadian guy. Jason Short from New Zealand in Virage du Pont is second, 1.0 behind the Race Dictator. Todd on lap 3 is P4, 0.8 behind, that Canadian guy. Jason Short in Virage de El Hotel on lap 3 is second, 0.8 behind the Race Dictator. Todd from New Zealand is fourth, 0.8 behind, that Canadian guy. 15 minutes remaining in the session. YH8 Racing in Lignidroit du Mistral is sixth. Best lap is a 2:06.958. 3.484 off the fastest lap. Todd on lap 3 is fourth, 0.5 behind, that Canadian guy. YH8 Racing in Doubledroit de Bosset on lap 3 is P6, 1.1 behind Johnny Prince. Todd is P4, 0.2 behind, that Canadian guy. Jason Short on lap 3 is P2, 1.0 behind the Race Dictator. Todd in Estelaverie is fourth, 0.3 behind, that Canadian guy. Todd was 0.6 faster last lap. Jason Short in Virage Du Camp is P2, 1.0 behind the race dictator. Todd is 4th, 0.4 behind, that Canadian got. Jason Short is 2nd. Best lap is a 2:02.456. 0.086 off the fastest lap. Todd is P4, 0.3 behind, that Canadian got. Jason Short in Virage de Bender is 2nd, 1.7 behind the race dictator. Todd in Virage du Lac on lap 4 is 4th, 0.3 behind, that Canadian got. Jason Short in S de la Verrerie is P2, 1.3 behind the race dictator. Todd is 4th, 0.4 behind, that Canadian got. Jason Short in Ligne du Mistral is 2nd, 1.6 behind the race dictator. Todd from New Zealand is P4, 0.4 behind, that Canadian got. Jason Short in Corby de Signes is 2nd, 1.6 behind the race dictator. Todd in Double Droit de Bosset is 4th, 0.7 behind, that Canadian got. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Jason Short in Virage du Pont is P2, 1.5 behind the race dictator. Todd in Virage du Pont is 5th, 0.2 behind Johnny Prince. Todd was 0.8 faster last lap. Jason Short in Virage de El Hotel is P2, 1.5 behind the race dictator. Todd in Virage de El Hotel is P5, 0.5 behind Johnny Prince. Jason Short is 2nd, 1.6 behind the race dictator. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is P5. Best lap is a 2:04.546. 2.574 off the fastest lap. Jason Short in Virage de Bender on lap 6 is P2, 1.5 behind the race dictator. Johnny Prince in Virage de Bender is P5, 1.0 behind Todd. Jason Short in S de la Verrerie is second, 1.2 behind the race dictator. Johnny Prince in S de la Verrerie is P5, 1.0 behind Todd. Todd was 1.6 faster last lap. Jason Short is second, 1.0 behind the race dictator. That Canadian guy on lap 7 is P3. Jason Short in Double Droit de Bosset is P2, 1.1 behind the race dictator. Johnny Prince in Corby de Signes on lap 7 is 5th. Jason Short on lap 7 is second, 0.7 behind the race dictator. That Canadian guy in S de la Verrerie is P3. Jason Short is second, 0.9 behind the race dictator. Jason Short was 0.6 faster last lap. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Johnny Prince in Virage de El Hotel is P5. Jason Short is P2. Best lap is a 2:01.359. Jason Short passed the race dictator for P1. The race dictator from New Zealand is P2 battling Jason Short. That Canadian guy is third. The race dictator is P2, 1.1 behind Jason Short. Jason Short was 0.6 faster last lap. That Canadian guy in S de la Verrerie is third. The race dictator in Virage de la Sainte-Bonne is second, 1.4 behind Jason Short. That Canadian guy is third. Todd is fourth. The race dictator from New Zealand is fourth, 0.1 behind Todd. That Canadian guy in Virage du Lac is P2. The race dictator in Virage du Pont is P4. Best lap is a 2:01.927. 0.642 off the fastest lap. That Canadian guy in Virage de El Hotel is P2. The race dictator in Virage de El Hotel is P4, 0.6 behind Todd. That Canadian guy is P2. The race dictator is P4, 0.7 behind Todd. That Canadian guy from Canada is second, 3.8 behind Jason Short. Jason Short is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Jason Short finished first. That Canadian guy finished second. Todd finished third. The race dictator finished fourth. Johnny Prince finished P5. YH8 Racing is P6. YH8 Racing finished sixth. Chris Bunnett finished P7. Broadcast bot is 8th.